A royal hush was broken 5 minutes ago. Dr. Ian McNeill, the private physician of King Charles III, appeared outside Clarence House by himself, and his remarks have rocked Britain. He verified an abrupt and severe decline in the king's health in a shaky voice. The unvarnished, terrifying truth. No palace filter, no press release. The consequences are dire because the monarch's health has deteriorated. Is this the start of the end? Why now? And why is the doctor speaking out instead of the crown? This is not just a health update. This moment has the potential to permanently alter the monarchy. The surprising declaration. Music 5 minutes ago. That was the sentence that appeared in headlines and on TVs. Easy, urgent, and scary. Dr. Ian McNeill, the king's personal physician, unexpectedly appeared outside Clarence House at precisely 10:05 a.m. Reporters held their breath as cameras clicked. And then the blunt statement, no one expected. His Majesty's condition has taken a critical turn. The king's physician stood in the October air, delivering a message that destroyed all sense of stability. No buffer, no royal press office. Why didn't the palace speak but the doctor did? That in and of itself was concerning. Rarely, if at all, do royal doctors give public speeches. Statements were planned, controlled, and postponed, even in the last days of Queen Elizabeth II. However, it appeared that Dr. McNeill was taking the initiative on his own. In his announcement, he mentioned the king's continuous fight with cancer, which had been made public back in February 2024, as the reason for the abrupt and notable fall over the previous 72 hours. This was not a typical situation. This was not like anything else. Who said that is what makes this moment so momentous? Dr. McNeill is not involved in politics. He is not a spokesperson. He holds one of the highest levels of trust in the royal institution as the king's physician. His forthright speech indicates that either he deviated from the script or the palace approved it during a crisis. Both choices are equally unsettling because what precisely is going on behind those gates if the king's physician is raising the alarm? Major media sites went into overdrive in the minutes immediately following the statement. Programming was stopped by BBC News. King Charles started to trend globally on X as Sky News switched to live coverage. Buckingham Palace has not yet released a statement. Fear, conjecture, and worry erupted on social media. Was the monarch unconscious? Had a transfer been made in an emergency? Most unsettling of all, was this the start of the end? Many people have never heard of Dr. Ian McNeill before. But for years, he has been a silent, unwavering presence in the royal inner circle. And we must comprehend him and how deeply ingrained he is in the king's personal life in order to fully appreciate the effect of today's bombshell. The doctor-king relationship is in the past. Ian McNeill is not your typical doctor. He is the one who is trusted with the monarchy's stability and, thus, its health. Dr. McNeill was brought in for reasons other than his fine credentials when he was appointed as King Charles III's personal physician in late 2022, barely months after the late Queen's death. He is a former St. Bartholomew's Hospital consultant with more than 25 years of experience in royal protocol and oncology. Because of his loyalty, discretion, and quiet strength, he was personally chosen. Dr. McNeill has never given a public speech up to this point. The king kept quiet behind the scenes even during his prostate treatment in January 2024 and the cancer disclosure in February. Each update was meticulously timed, measured, verified, and routed through the palace. That's why the comment made today is so startling. This was not your average check-in. This was a personal appeal, perhaps even a caution from a member of the medical community. It is astounding how much access this doctor has. He does more than just administer prescription drugs. He oversees all clinical reports, arranges treatments with private physicians, and sits by the king's bedside. McNeill is the one who has the complete picture. Because of this, his choice to speak up is not only unexpected but also quite important. No one else can verify the secrets he has. In royal medicine, of course, confidentiality and trust are paramount. Traditionally, the monarch's health is kept under wraps like a state secret. Even the death of Queen Elizabeth was described in ambiguous ways until it was too late. It breaks decades of royal medical quiet for Dr. McNeill to speak, especially with such urgency. It raises the question of what transpired that made remaining silent more risky than speaking up. What precisely did Dr. McNeill say then? What was confirmed, aside from the astonishment and the emotion? Let's examine the details and the holes in that surprise claim. Music, what was verified? Dr. McNeill only provided a few specific points in his 2-minute speech, but each one was very important. According to the headline, King Charles III's immune system has significantly declined as a result of an unexpected consequence in his ongoing cancer treatment. McNeil claims that imaging and blood work were used to corroborate this change, which was initially seen on October 18th. However, the crew didn't realize how serious the alteration was until the evening of October 20th, which was only 24 hours ago. Importantly, McNeil stated that the monarch was now getting critical care or intense support measures, although he refrained from using such phrases. Organ failure, hospitalization, or immediate abdication were not mentioned, but they were also not ruled out. The wording was just right, enough to warn, but not enough to educate. He clarified that the monarch is still awake and able to communicate, but he also mentioned that continued decline is still a worry for the next few days. The most mysterious line then appeared. This comment may not reflect an official position of the royal household, but it does reflect my professional duty to the monarch. The press corps shuddered at that one sentence. Was the palace unprepared? Did they attempt to block him? Was this an act of rebellion by a devoted servant under moral duress? We were not informed of any new diagnoses, any hospital transfers, or the participation of other royals in day-to-day governance. Although Charles seemed to be the only one affected, the ramifications are much more widespread. Questions were raised by the usage of medical terminology without more explanation. Which type of cancer is getting worse? Which course of treatment was jeopardized? And after 6 hours of silence, why has Buckingham Palace not provided an explanation? We must look back in order to appreciate the significance of this most recent development. The narrative of the king's health did not begin today. For nearly 2 years, it has been happening both in secret and in public. And now every chapter reads like a cautionary tale that we disregarded. The danger symptoms were present in King Charles III's health chronology. In retrospect, the tale of King Charles III's health unfolds like a slow-burning fuse. Unmistakable, quiet, and cautious. The palace first revealed that the monarch had received treatment for an enlarged prostate in January 2024. He was released from the hospital after 3 days, after the ailment was deemed benign at the time. The relief of the public. It appeared insignificant. It wasn't. The announcement that altered everything was made in February 2024, just 1 month later. Charles's cancer diagnosis was disclosed by the palace, although the type of cancer was not disclosed. The details were ambiguous. Just a well-documented assurance that treatment was in progress, with no stage or prognosis. The people were informed that the king would keep working whenever he could. However, the monarchy started to subtly change behind the scenes. The palace issued a modest yet significant upgrade on March 27, 2025. The king's medicine was having unexpected adverse effects. The first formal indication that the recovery will not proceed as planned was the statement made by a senior representative via Reuters. Charles continued nevertheless. He supervised documents, made few public appearances, and sent brief video messages from Sandringham and Balmoral. Then, in July 2012, he sent a rare and upbeat message on the internet, stating that he felt much better and was appreciative of the public's support. However, that optimism now appears to be a front, a stop before the jump. A separate reality is shown by the timeline. There were weeks of quiet, extended periods without updates, thoughtfully selected pictures, and smiles that never quite reached the eyes. And now that Dr. McNeil has come forward, it's obvious that something altered significantly during the last 72 hours, and it might have been developing for much longer. However, the king's health is no longer the only issue. It's about the structure that surrounds him, his function, his authority, and what occurs when a monarch, no matter how quietly or elegantly he attempted to continue, may no longer be able to reign. The king's health has institutional ramifications and is not merely a personal issue. It's a constitutional matter. Charles III, the monarch, is not an individual. As the head of state, he represents consistency, stability, and national identity. Dr. McNeil wasn't referring to a single patient when he stated that continuous decline is still a concern. He was referring to the foundation of the entire British royal structure. According to UK law, councillors of state may be chosen to take the monarch's place if he is judged to be mentally or physically incapable of performing official duties. Queen Camilla, Prince William, Princess Anne, and Prince Edward are currently among them. But to return to McNeil's assertion, that procedure is formal, legal, and necessitates medical confirmation. Was it an indication that a decision of this kind would soon be made? Everything is altered if the king takes a temporary or permanent retreat. It is possible to cancel state visits. There may be a delay in parliamentary proceedings. Even matters like the royal ascension required to enact legislation could be done differently. The machinery of monarchy is already undergoing testing behind the scenes. Is it able to function without its figurehead? The heir comes next. The 43-year-old Prince William is handling his own crisis in addition to taking on additional royal responsibilities this year. Princess Catherine's recent public return following a months-long absence and her ongoing recuperation from stomach surgery. William would have to act quickly if Charles moved aside or worse. Furthermore, the monarchy might not be ready for another shock given that it is still recuperating from Prince Harry's exit and the public outcry against Queen Camilla. History serves as a reminder of how fragile everything is. A prince regent was appointed during George III's reign due to mental infirmity. Even Queen Victoria's grief raised concerns about leadership and visibility among the general populace. Now, in 2025, the monarchy might have to face its most significant challenge in decades. Additionally, the public isn't waiting while officials work behind the scenes. The reaction has already started on the internet, in headlines, and worldwide, and it is unfiltered, passionate, and terrifying. Response from the public and media? The media didn't refrain. BBC News released a breaking notice 10 minutes after Dr. McNeil's remarks. A royal doctor speaks. King's health has gotten worse. According to Sky News, it was a remarkable occasion in the history of royal medicine. Usually more subdued, The Guardian published a harsh headline titled, "Crisis at the Crown." Global media agencies like CNN and Leond hurried to confirm what was happening in London. The response on social media was swift and enormous. The hashtag King Charles became popular in 34 nations in less than an hour. Supportive, worried, and prayerful words were posted by thousands of users. What had actually transpired behind palace doors was the subject of intense conjecture among others. A cover-up was feared by some. Others questioned whether internal conflicts had compelled Dr. McNeil to speak up. Online sentiment fluctuated between conspiracy and sadness. Within the first 12 hours, YouGov performed early surveys that revealed a shocking change. More than 62% of respondents expressed concern about the monarchy's stability, and 41% thought Prince William had to start getting ready for a regency position. These are more than simply figures. They reflect the uneasiness of a country, and yet there was quiet from Buckingham Palace. Not a word, not a correction, not a denial, nor an explanation. The lack of leadership has only intensified the media frenzy. On air, seasoned royal analysts like Jenny Bond and Robert Hardman voiced their frank concern, asking whether the palace is managing the crisis or avoiding it. The Daily Mail's title stated it all. The palace is located where? This is no longer a tale of sickness. It's a tale about whether or not the crown still upholds trust. However, there is an unsettling reality that goes beyond politics or image. Was the doctor's speech really morally acceptable? Or has the delicate balance between royal privacy and the public's right to know the ethical and medical aspects been upset by this crisis? A monarch's health has been shrouded in secrecy for ages. Particularly within the royal gates, doctor-patient secrecy was unbreakable. However, October 21, 2025 might have permanently altered that. Dr. Ian McNeil went too far when he spoke up. Was it bravery or a betrayal of confidence? The monarch's medical records are legally protected. However, the stakes are higher in terms of ethics. A sick sovereign affects more than just family members. It has an impact on a country. Is quiet still appropriate when stability, governance, and public safety are at stake? Dr. McNeil didn't appear to agree. "My duty to the crown," he said, was more than just a medical statement. They had morality. Because of this, his message is both a clinical update and a cry of conscience. What precisely did the physician disclose? Not much, but enough to make the institution tremble. He attested to an abrupt deterioration, immunological suppression, and rigorous therapy. However, he did not mention treatment failures, specific hazards, or the prognosis. Selective disclosure, according to some experts, is worse than silence. There's too much space for fear. Some think he spoke just enough to save both his license and the dignity of his patients. However, one thing is evident. Medical professionals in royal homes are under tremendous strain. It is almost impossible to strike a balance between ethics, privacy, and devotion. Additionally, the distinction between a doctor and a diplomat becomes hazy when health becomes a matter of state, as was the case with King George VI, whose cancer was concealed until his death. It's possible that McNeil made the country face a difficult reality. Health is a political issue in a constitutional monarchy, not a private one. What now occurs? In addition to providing us with an update, Dr. McNeil's remarks opened the door to all potential outcomes, from the optimistic to the disastrous. Possible future situations? There are now 4 options, and each one has enormous ramifications. In the worst scenario, the announcement served as a gentle introduction to full crisis management because the king's illness is terminal. We may witness the activation of a Regent Act in a matter of days if he loses consciousness, or his body is no longer responsive to treatment. This would enable Prince William to take on the constitutional duties of the king, while Charles continues to hold the title of monarch. However, such a step would be painful and historic, a moderate situation. The king requires immediate repose due to a momentary setback, a decline in immunity, a drug reaction, or a hidden sickness. In that scenario, engagements would be canceled, obligations would be suspended, but recovery would be feasible. Weakened but still active, he might emerge in a matter of weeks. That would buy the palace some time, but it would also prompt demands for a well-defined succession plan. In the best scenario, this is a recalibration moment. It's possible that Dr. McNeil's remarks were an act of openness and a unique window into a controllable circumstance. The king might still be stable. The course of treatment has been modified. And rather than being a precipice, this is a turning point. If such is the case, though, why has the palace been silent for more than 18 hours? And then there's the secret situation that nobody wants to discuss in public. What if there is more to this than just the physical? What if the king's constitutional capacity, stress levels, or mental acuity are questioned? Whispers that this may be about more than medicine have been stoked by Dr. McNeil's nuanced language, particularly his mention of professional duty. Is the monarch psychologically overburdened or emotionally spent? Is a soft exit about to begin? The time is running out. The media tempest will only intensify if there are no updates within the next 24 to 48 hours. The public's confidence will decline. There will be a lot of conjecture and pressure on Prince William, who might be forced into leadership before he's ready. However, the stakes in this situation go well beyond Windsor Castle. The way the UK and the rest of the world deal with monarchy power and the unspoken rules that nobody discusses until they are broken may change as a result of this issue. Greater constitutional and political stakes. Music. A sovereign possesses the seal of governing but does not actually govern. Every facet of the state must change if King Charles becomes handicapped. Every act of parliament is finalized by royal assent, which needs to be signed. The monarch's presence or consent is required for government briefings, state visits, and Privy Council meetings. And the system starts to bend without it. According to reports, MPS is already requesting clarification behind closed doors. Who takes over if Charles is absent even for a short while? William, Prince. Indeed, but only in accordance with the Regency Acts of 1937 and 1953. Additionally, a public explanation and legal action would be required for such an appointment. This could trigger a constitutional conflict that the monarchy has shied away from for many years. The ramifications are as significant on a global scale. Over the following 6 months, Charles was to conduct state visits to Kenya, Australia, and India. Diplomacy changes if he pulls out. Internal strife and Brexit have already damaged the UK's reputation. Furthermore, a weaker monarch would hasten discussions about republicanism within the Commonwealth, where allegiance is brittle. The symbolism comes next. The king is a symbol of continuity. Legacy, the passing of time. The monarchy loses its stabilizing power if he passes away too soon. And in just 3 years since Queen Elizabeth II's death, the monarchy has hardly had time to stabilize before trembling once more. This could be the turning point. It is said that documents on emergency succession, legal protections, and the future of transparency and royal health are being quietly prepared by think tanks, constitutional scholars, and royal advisors. Because there is more to this than just a family issue. The system is under pressure. Ultimately, though, this goes beyond titles, thrones, and constitutions. It's about individuals, about you, and about how the nation views itself from the perspective of a monarch who might not be able to rule anymore. What does this mean for you and the country? Millions of others are asking the same question right now. What follows? In actuality, we have no idea. One thing is certain, though. This moment is important. The British population may come to understand that the monarchy is not permanent at this point. It is human, delicate, and vulnerable. The emotional burden is significant for common people. The reign of King Charles III is only getting started. He took the throne in September 2022 after decades of waiting, only to encounter public expectations, pressure, and illness. Many are sympathetic. Some people are frustrated. However, almost everyone experiences uncertainty. Will he get better? Will he resign? Will there be another coronation during our lifetime? This is a reckoning for the media. The days of royal protection and soft euphemisms are long gone. Even if it is uncomfortable, the public now demands openness, clarity, and the truth. Additionally, trust may irreversibly break if the palace doesn't say anything. Historians will probably view this as a pivotal event in contemporary monarchy, similar to Diana's funeral or Edward VII's abdication, where royal tradition and public sentiment intersect. Future generations' perception of the crown as a reality rather than as a symbol will be shaped by what happens next. And the ramifications are huge for succession watchers. Prince William is already receiving more attention. His position, his preparedness, and his public persona. Princess Catherine may soon be drawn into a more public role while she continues to heal. Everything could start to change underneath the surface, including financial arrangements, titles, and obligations. But we wait for now. The remark made by Dr. McNeil was not the last one. It was a warning, a quake, and perhaps the beginning of a fundamental shift in Britain's perception of both itself and its king. There is more to this than just a man. This has to do with a country and its pulse. This could be the most vulnerable period of King Charles III's brief reign. The monarch, who finally took the throne in September 2022 after decades of waiting, is now faced with a dilemma. His role, his responsibilities, and his health were all in jeopardy. The remark made by Dr. McNeil was more than a clinical report. It was a breach in the royal secrecy barrier. And the world witnessed something it doesn't often see through that breach. Unpredictability within the crown. Despite its grandeur and authority, the monarchy has always been based on a single person. The institution shudders when that individual falters. The royal family is obviously preparing for the repercussions, as Prince William has already discreetly taken on more responsibilities, and Queen Camilla is reportedly holding emergency briefings behind palace doors. Change is on the horizon, whether it takes the form of a brief halt, a constitutional transition, or something even more significant. However, this is more than just headlines to the British people. It's private. Many people still recall the Queen's last days, her cautious remarks, and her unexpected passing. Only 3 years later, that silent sorrow seems perilously near once more. The crown is meant to be stable and unwavering. However, while millions of people hope, wonder, and dread tonight, the hashtag #prayers4the king is trending on social media. And this moment already feels momentous to both monarchists and historians. A royal doctor has never previously gone public in real time, eschewing the palace to convey such an unvarnished message. It suggests a potential change in the way royal health is viewed as a national issue, rather than as secret, whispered news. What then happens? More declarations, a reply from the palace, and an official statement regarding responsibilities, regency, or succession. Or will there be more silence, leaving room for conjecture? This is the only thing that is evident at the moment. 5 minutes ago, something happened that cannot be reversed. The monarchy is on the verge of collapse. What the crown does next will determine whether it holds or breaks. But one thing is guaranteed, regardless of how everything plays out. The monarch is no longer merely recuperating. He is engaged in combat. The future of the throne is also uncertain.